Okay, we left off on page 25 or 24. Vasco Nunez de Balbo hiked across Panama and was the first European to see the Pacific Ocean by heading west. In 1519, Ferdinand Magellan coined the name Pacific Ocean from peaceful sea. Was a Portuguese man sailing on behalf of Spain, reached the tip of South America, was killed in a battle in the Philippines, but his ships returned in 1522 as the first crew to circumnavigate the earth. Vocabulary word. Circumnavigate, to sail around. Circum, like a circle. Like circumference, which some of you guys will be talking about in math soon. The Columbian Exchange. There had been no mixing of plants and animals between Americas and the rest of the world for over 10,000 years. Things like corn, tobacco, cocoa, and potatoes didn't exist elsewhere until they were brought back from the Americas. In return, Europeans brought wheat, barley, grapes, and onions, as well as cattle, pigs, and horses to the Americas. The plants changed the diets of people all over the world, and the animals changed the way the land was used in the Americas. Humans hadn't been exposed to any of each other's germs either. Diseases such as smallpox, measles, and the flu were common in Europe, but Native Americans didn't have immunity. Immunity means the resistance to a disease or sickness, particularly due to previous exposure to the germs. About 20 million people died from disease in the 100-year span in Central America alone. This mixing of plants and animals, viruses, and bacteria is also known as the Great Columbian Exchange, or the Great Biological Exchange. Conquistadores. The conquistadores, a new kind of Spanish explorer and conqueror. They were given the thumbs up from the king and queen to settle the Americas in return for 20% of any treasure found. The conquistadores wanted to A. Convert people to Christianity, trade for goods, and find lots of gold. In 1519, Hernan Cortez came to Mexico with about 500 soldiers, along with horses and cannons. With the help of a native woman called Malintzin, Cortez convinced the people whom the Aztecs had conquered to ally with him. They resented paying tribute to their emperor Montezuma with human sacrifices. Seeing their shiny metal weapons and horses, Montezuma was worried that maybe Cortez was the god Quetzalcoatl, or the gods had sent Cortez to his men. After welcoming them to Tenochtitlan, they offered them treasures and hoped they'd leave. That backfired, since Cortez now realized that the Aztecs had a whole lot of gold. With the help of the Aztecs' angry subjects, Cortez and his crew captured Montezuma. On June 30th, 1520, La Noche Triste, the sad night, the people of, say it again, Joseph, thank you, drove the Spanish and their allies from the city. Montezuma was killed in the fighting along with numerous Spanish soldiers. But in May of 1521, Cortez returned with more Spanish troops, and this time the Aztec Empire fell. Tenochtitlan was destroyed, and the Spanish built the Mexico City on top of the rubble. In 1532, Francisco Pizarro sailed down the coast of South America. He had fewer than 200 men with him and was welcomed by Atahualpa, the Inca ruler. Pizarro took Atahualpa prisoner, although Atahualpa offered the Spaniards gold in exchange for his freedom. They executed him. Pizarro and his troops marched into the capital at Cuzco. By 1534, they had conquered the entire 2,000-mile-long territory in what is now Peru. How did Cortez and Pizarro conquer powerful empires? Their weapons, armor, and horses made them godlike and gave them the advantage. They took their enemies by surprise. They got a lot of support from oppressed locals. But the biggest reason was the European diseases like smallpox wiped out a large percentage of the Aztec and Inca populations. Other famous explorers and conquistadors. Wow. We got a lot to read, don't we?
You're reading from chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
And chapter 3 is what page?
We're on 27 now.
So it's got to be like 30 something.
We're going to finish at 31. Juan Ponce de Leon landed in a place he named Florida in 1513. Although he was looking for the Fountain of Youth, he didn't find it. He explored Florida, which in 1565 became the first Spanish settlement that would be the U.S. Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca led an expedition to Florida in 1528 and was stranded on an island off what is now Texas. He lived as a prisoner among the locals for 6 years and then escaped to Mexico. His experience led for him to call for better treatment of the Native Americans. In 1540, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado arrived in what is now New Mexico. He was in search of the 7 mythical cities of gold. He didn't find them. Hernando de Soto crossed Mississippi River in 1541. In 1598, Juan de Onate established the province of New Mexico. He brought cows and horses. A viceroy is a person appointed by a king or queen to rule in an area on his or her behalf. So the Spanish Society in the Americas, through the Council of Indies, formed in 1524, the Spanish monarchs appointed 2 viceroys. Each was in charge of a viceroyalty. One in New Spain, Central America and its surroundings, and one in Peru. Okay, we're going to pause this just for a second, guys. Okay.